What's going on, everyone? Welcome to cartoon season. Lots of good stuff today. Well, really only one thing. It is the Mitchells versus the Machines. That's what we're doing today. Because, of course, I'm Tyler, and this is where I talk about different kind of things when it comes to animation. Sometimes movies, sometimes TV shows, as long as it's cartoon-ish or it's anime-ish. We're here. We're here to discuss it. And today is all about the Mitchells versus the Machines. Good stuff. Great film overall. It's another really good movie. Netflix killing it, honestly. Movie that I heard a lot about. Never got around to watching it until very recently, and let me tell you, candidate for animated movie of the year. Let me say. I know. Well, we'll get into that, but lots of good stuff to talk about here. I'm going to talk about the art style, of course, which is one of my favorite things about the film. I am going to talk about how Katie, I guess probably like the main in-your-face plot is Katie outgrowing the family. We're going to talk a little bit about that, as well as the reality of Pal, and how that is very much lots of similarities to real life here with the whole Pal thing. Before we get into that, make sure go to the we'll go to the Tiger T YouTube channel. That's where you can find other episodes of this as well as anything else. Or if you're more of an audio only kind of person, you can go to pretty much any podcast platform. There really are a lot more podcast platforms than I thought there were, but we're on pretty much all of them. And more episodes there, but today's episode is what we're talking about today, because today is today. And like I said, I want to start off with the art style of this movie, because I think it is really fantastic. I really like them mixing 2D and 3D elements here. Even in the shot, if you're watching on YouTube, I have a nice little screenshot here for you, where we got the 3D, of course, of the character model, but then we got the 2D of everything else. Everything else right now is 2D. I mean, I guess they could have made it in 3D, but it's 2D visually, I'll say. I think they do a good job with that throughout the entire film, where there will be nice little like stingers, or I don't know what it's called, but nice little moments like this, where this is a moment in the actual film where she's talking about something, I don't know, and she has like a nice little freeze frame, and it's her, but then we have little 2D cutouts and drawings and doodles and whatever on top of it. I think that's a really cool thing they did, because mixing mediums like that, or at least mixing visual styles like that, is always interesting to look at for the eye, right? Keeps it new, keeps it fresh, keeps you always guessing as to what the next scene is going to look like. Even though, again, this isn't like the style of the film. It only happens in shots here and there, but it happens enough for it to be like, this is what this movie is. And one of the comparisons I was making to it as I was watching it, and then even by the time I finished it, it reminded me a lot of Into the Spider-Verse, which is a movie came out a few years ago, praised for its visual aesthetics. And that was another one where they kind of mixed a bunch of different types of animation together. There's even new stuff that they did to again, there's stuff in that movie that I feel like you've never seen anywhere else. And that's a lot very much like this movie, where there are things in the movie that I've never really seen before. I maybe have seen it in small bursts in other films, but the way it's utilized here is so good. Even this shot right here, what's going on right now? But there is a lot of collage shots in this film, and I think that is really important for, not only visually, but also it helps with the story, because this does look, the film itself, there's lots of scenes in this movie that it looks like Katie made this movie. This shot right here, this comes straight from when we watch her little movies that she makes. This is what her movies look like, so I think that adds to it as well. I'm not saying that Katie made this movie, it's not a big overall she was asleep the whole time, I'm not looking for that kind of twist, but it does add to it, right? Because a lot of this movie is just her. You know, the centerpiece of this movie is her, of course. We'll talk about that later, but I just think them mixing all this stuff, like even images, like in the top left there, you see images of real arms. You know, like someone took a picture of an arm and cut it out and, you know, put it on the film. And I don't know, just the visuals of this movie, fantastic. You know, and I also think that's something that's really important too for, animated movies especially. Like, you don't want, at least in my opinion, you don't want to make a movie and people say, oh, this movie looks just like this movie. You know, it's like, oh, well, no, I mean, this is our movie, we made it. And, you know, it's like, oh, well, yeah, but I mean, it looks just like this movie, like visually. Like, you don't really want that. You kind of want to stand out and for people to leave it and be, wow, that was crazy. And I feel like that was accomplished with this one. Even though I know earlier on I said it looks like Spider-Verse, this movie does not look like Spider-Verse. It's very reminiscent of Spider-Verse in the sense that I feel like there's lots of things being mixed together. But this movie does not look like Spider-Verse. This looks like its own thing. Which again is one of the critiques that people have of like Pixar movies. Or Pixar movies, a lot of them just kind of look all the same. You know, obviously over the years, the fidelity of them have gotten much better. But when a Pixar movie comes out, you're like, oh yeah, that looks just like, yeah, I mean that's Pixar, which is good. It's very clean. It's very high quality, but it can get boring, you know. And I think that's what this movie did better than many other animated movies, which is avoid being boring, which I think is a goal for every movie, but this one accomplished it like far and away. And then even with things like, there was like, you know, obviously a big focus of the movie was the technology, you know, her on her phone all the time, and they've played with filters, right? When we would look through her phone to whatever her phone was looking at, and there'd be phone filters on there, and that was another nice way of you know, throwing some visual spice into this movie. You know, because we would see it in little chunks where it was literally just her pointing her phone at like her dad and having a cat filter or whatever. But then a lot of this movie, there was a few shots here and there where it looked like there was a phone filter being put on it. And again, I don't think they're going for the angle that Katie made this movie, but I think again this just adds to its uniqueness in terms of how it was shot and what they added to each scene when they didn't really have to. And yeah, I just think art style, fantastic. I think that's a green check for this movie at least, where, you know, because like I said, there are other movies that you watch and you're like, okay, this doesn't look that great. You know, and again, it's not necessarily the quality of it, but it's just like, movie looks like we've seen a million times, so then you have to focus on the story, because the visuals are just kind of going over your head because they don't matter, they don't stand out. But this movie I think excelled in both the visual and the writing. That's good. And then the second thing we got going on here is Kdl Growing the Family, which is the A plot of this film. And I think it's not a story, at least at its base, that we've never heard before. You know, of the kid growing up and growing out of the things that the family does. You know, especially even the angle of like, oh, my parents don't understand me. You know, we've seen that a million times. But I think that this movie does, you know, a very good job of it. You know, like even though it might be rehashing some things, to me it never felt like this movie is just this other movie, you know, which always at the very base level is a very good bar to you know, to at the very least reach, right? You don't have to skyrocket past the bar, but as long as you get over that bar, I feel like it's acceptable. And I felt this movie did that, where, you know, one pillar of it was obviously the Katie and the dad relationship. We see they were very close young, but then Katie grew up and found her other things that dad wasn't into, dad couldn't relate to. And with the whole movie thing, the visual effects, the visual storytelling, like, he didn't get it, right? Like, he at his base, he doesn't get technology, right? We even seen this image right here. If you're on YouTube, you can see it. If you're on audio, I have an image up where they are family dinner, basically, sitting at the dinner table, and the mom Aaron and Katie are all on their phones, and the dad is not on his phone, and he's just kind of looking very, not bored, more like just done with the situation of like, oh, everyone's on their phones. I want to have a nice meal together and talk with each other, but everyone's on their phone, so I can't. That's kind of the mood he has right now. More like disappointed, I guess, maybe a good word. And but yeah, that's kind of where he's at. And again, I never thought that the dad was like a bad dad in this movie. I do think there's a couple of things he did which were a little questionable. Him breaking the laptop was pretty bad. I think that's unacceptable. Especially like, I'm sure like Katie could have gotten all her files, like all her movies and stuff off of there, as long as it wasn't like damaged too bad. Because I feel like technology nowadays is pretty durable, but still, like that's not okay. Her whole passion is on this laptop, and you just destroyed it. But yeah, like I never really thought he was bad. I just thought he was frustrated with how she has kind of drifted away from him and how he wants to be closer to her, but he just can't do it. That is just a wall. Like him understanding this technology stuff, it's just impossible for him. Like he had to sit down for like 100 hours. Like he had like a mental breakdown trying to subscribe to her YouTube channel. It's like what? It's like it takes you like 10 seconds to load up YouTube, go to a YouTube channel and click subscribe. It took him about 4 hours. And but yeah, I think that's obviously the main dynamic we see in the movie is them two kind of butting heads the whole time. But I thought it was nice because, again, it's something we've seen before, but I think they did a really good job of it. Them incorporating the technology, them incorporating her passions, and then we see more of him too, where he's more of the outdoorsy type. And then even them coming together in the end with, the mom revealing to the daughter that, he built that cabin in the woods, right? And like it was beautiful, like it was a work of art. It wasn't just functional. And for Katie to see that and be like, oh wow, he's kind of an artist. And for her to get like more of an appreciation for what the dad does because of that. And then obviously, we see more like the homemade movies, and that, that brings some memories to her as well. And then by the end of it, with the end of the world being at stake, the dad also compromises a little bit and gets more into her world of, having to like upload the virus or whatever. And then, like I said, subscribing to the YouTube channel. But it was nice. Another person here, we got Aaron, little brother. And he definitely gets Katie more. He's definitely on that like weird spectrum, very much into dinosaurs. That's cool. But even that, we get through that, and Katie has to go to college, and now she's leaving him behind. Now he's like, ooh, I don't know what I'm gonna do now. Now you're not gonna be with me. I don't have anyone else to, because it seems like he enjoyed making the movies with her, and then she also indulged him in his dinosaur stuff. And so that was another thing with her outgrowing the family and her having to go off and not be with them for better or for worse. Although, touching on the Aaron situation, him meeting I think it was just like the neighbor's kid, right? And like them both being into dinosaurs, that was really cool. That was dope. And then by the end of it, they're like hanging out. They have their own little like blanket fort, and like he's like still kind of embarrassed to like show Katie and everything. He's like, I found someone, I found, so like even then again with the reconciliation with the dad, we had one with the Aaron as well, where it was okay because he actually found someone to be his friend and like have all these similar interests as him. So it's like, it's okay if not with Katie every day. And then the last piece when it comes to outgrowing the family, we have the other side of it, where not only the family, now we have the college friends who, she was super psyched about. She went online and saw their projects. Their projects were very reminiscent of her projects. They all have similar thinking when it comes to their like creativeness and how they express themselves and with technology and everything like that. And so that's what was drawing her towards them and away from the family. Again, it's a good thing though, like I think there was definitely many moments in this movie where she was like never coming back. never coming back to this family is crazy. He doesn't feel that way now, but I think they're having college friends that understand her. I think that was just more ammunition for her to be like, you know, if I never come back, it's fine, because now I'm not talking to people that understand me, you know, because even Aaron at some level is still just a little brother, and I'm sure once he grows up, he'll grow out of certain things. And even the mom who tries, mom still doesn't really understand it. She just tries a lot harder than the dad did. You know, and again, you can't really blame the other friends. It's just, that's who they are, and that's how they got it in this movie. But then, you know, by the end with the whole outgrowing the family thing, like I said, it all worked out with everyone. You know, she still like Skypes them or whatever, FaceTimes them, and super cool with all her friends. Like, again, it worked out. You know, it didn't work out with any animosity, which is good, which is how it should be. You know, family should support each other. that's literally main pillar, being a family. And I think by the end they did a really good job of showcasing that. And then we have the last part, which is the most meta aspect of this movie, which is Pal. You know, very much the Steve Jobs, very much the Apple parallel here, where we have Pal, virtual assistant, right? Helping with everything. Pal is yeah, I mean, this whole company's everywhere. They apparently have a chip in every electronic device in existence. And it's scary. It's some scary stuff, you know, because again, this is very reminiscent of real life. They're always upgrading, right? Which happens in real life. Everything is always upgraded. Always have a new version, even if it's super incremental. There's always something new. That's happening here, and even the whole core of this aspect of this story or whatever with this dude, don't remember his name, not important, is that he upgraded away from the thing that he's had for so long to something very dangerous, a lot more control over what they're doing than just what a virtual assistant in a phone has. But again, that just goes to show you always need something new. We can never be happy with what we have. It's always got to be, a new phone or new TV. We got those Furbies that apparently have the chips in them for some reason. Doesn't make any sense. And even the showcase here, he says like, hey, they're not going to turn evil. I promise. They have a fail safe. And then about 3 seconds after he says that, they all turn evil, which again, it goes to show like the villains, I mean, he's not really a villain, but like, they never think through anything. He couldn't have possibly taken, like, there's a failsafe, but he couldn't have possibly taken into account the phone he just threw away has now developed emotions, and the phone has a way to hack into everything. Couldn't have predicted it. But still, it gets that point of, even a real life conversation about AI, and if, that's obviously the direction we're going, but is it the smart one? Like, we've made movies about AI going wrong, but everyone is like, don't happen to us though. Like, we've learned from that. We see these movies, we see what goes wrong because we're the ones who write them. We know what the issues are. But I mean, at some point, like, you gotta realize that, like, a device that is ever learning, especially one that's hooked up to the internet, where any piece of information, whether it be true or false, it has at its disposal. Not a good idea, but it's still gonna happen. And then even touching on the whole like phone situation, controlling them, like, the phone has no faith in humans. We've seen that a million times, where like humans are imperfect, they get emotional, they have greed. They're not about efficiency, they're not about the big picture, right? Humans do not think about humans as a whole, as a species. We think about each other individually in like different pockets. And so the phone realized that, and they said, hey, the best thing we can do for humans, we're going to shoot them all into space. Now I think Pal was shooting some humans into the sun. I think that was the plan, right? At the very least, it was into space. We shot him into the sun as well. Just get rid of all of them, and then we're gonna have a perfect society because we're all machines, we're robots, we're AI, we can hook up to each other. It's a hive mindset, right? Hive mind works because there's no greed, right? There's no individuality because it's not necessary. So the species prospers. And let me tell you, that's a very good way of looking at it. Takes away everything it is to be human, but they're right in a sense. Even like they use Katie's family as an example, and it's like, none of them. Especially with the dad versus the Katie rivalry, they weren't really taking into account the family as a whole. I think Katie wasn't really giving her dad. I don't think either of them were giving each other leeway and trying to see the big picture as a family. Like Katie wasn't really. Katie just wanted recognition and admiration from her father because of the good work that she does. I don't think that she ever really put into account as much as she should have how much he doesn't understand this stuff. And it's not that he doesn't like it, it's that he just doesn't know what this is that you're showing him. And then on the dad side, it's like, you could have made more of an effort to sit down with your daughter and be like, hey, I wanna like what you're doing here. I just don't know it. I just help me. And neither one of them took that plunge because it's scary, for either one of them to kind of, extend the olive branch. But with that, they were both being selfish, and they didn't think of a big picture. They think about the family as a whole, of how, like, if one of them just made the sacrifice, it's not even that big of a sacrifice. It's just sitting down and having the conversation. You probably could have avoided this whole, like, very, very long running friction between you two. Something that wasn't existent first however many years of y'all's lives. But yeah, and that's something that the robots understood. But then, like, some of the robots gained emotions, and it's like, all right, guys. Like, there's the two robots at the end, or not even at the end, that were like halfway through, and like that was a great scene, by the way. Those two robots, like, trying to pretend they were humans, and then they like did like the imaginary stare bit where they went behind the shelf, and they came back up with like they used like markers to like draw on faces. It was great comedic relief during the movie was those two robots. That was great. But yeah, that's pretty much the movie. This movie is, like I said, fantastic. Another movie that I highly recommend to watch or to rewatch. I'm sure I'll be rewatching this movie at some point. Because like I said, the art style, the animation style, everything like that, visually it is super pleasing. And then even the story itself, like I said, it's not like at its core, it's not a very new story, but I think they do enough with it, especially with the creative characters and their own perspective, and then even just like the collection of the characters, not necessarily the characters themselves, but like them coming together and interacting with each other. And then also, like, again, you have the visual just bombastic kind of stuff going on here, but even like the ridiculousness of the movie, of like, we have this A plot. Like, the A plot of the film is the struggle with Katie and the dad, whereas the B plot of the film is the world is ending and there's an apocalypse and there's robots going around, and this phone is the ruler of the entire world, and they are also collecting every human on Earth and firing them at the speed of light into space, into the sun, because humans are bad. It's also just that as well. Like, they get into that so early in the movie where it's like, hey, what's that? Oh, the world is ending. But yeah, that's it. Movie's good. If you haven't seen it yet, weird that you sat through this whole thing, but go watch the movie. You'll understand it a lot more. And yeah, excited to watch more movies with this. Let me know what you thought of this film. Let me know what other movies you want to see, other shows, and of course, other than cartoon animated stuff. Anime is also on the roster. I've done a couple of those so far. Many, like my list, guys, super long, super crazy. It's a list of a madman. But I'm working through it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Go check out the other episodes. Go check out future episodes. And yeah, that's it. So, like I said, until next time, watch more movies, have more fun, and I don't know, sit down, have that conversation sometimes. Sometimes it might not avoid the robot apocalypse, but it might make it easier.